You've planned a vacation, right? Seems simple. You book a flight, grab a hotel, and you're good to go. But what if I told you that behind that simple trip, there's this massive hidden system? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at the invisible machinery that makes every single holiday happen.
Yeah, that trip you just took? It wasn't just some happy accident. There is this huge, invisible system working behind the scenes, connecting everything, I mean everything, from your bank account to the local environment of the place you visited. So, you ready? Let's map it out.
Okay, so here's the big idea we're going to unpack. Tourism, it's a system. The best way to think about it is like a living, breathing organism. Seriously, it's made up of all these interconnected parts. You, the traveler, the beach you're lounging on, the airline that got you there, even the local economy. And they're all working together. It's not just a bunch of random pieces. It's a dynamic, completely integrated whole.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at this idea of tourism as a living system. Then we'll dissect the anatomy of a trip. After that, we'll dive into the forces of tourism, the art of balance, and finally, wrap up with why any of this really matters.
Okay, let's dive into this first part, tourism as a living system. The absolute key thing to get here is that it's all connected, every single piece. So a change in one tiny part, I'm talking something as small as a flight delay or a new tourist tax, can send these huge ripples across the entire thing.
In this system, it really has its own personality. You know, its parts are totally dependent on each other. I mean, think about it. A hotel is useless without tourists, right? And tourists can't even get there without transportation. It's also super dynamic and open, which just means it's always changing, always reacting to stuff happening on the outside, like the global economy or some new travel app. And because of all that, it takes a ton of coordination to make sure it all runs smoothly.
Okay, so that's the theory. But what does this system actually look like in the real world? Let's break it down and map out the physical journey that every single traveler takes. Let's look at the anatomy of a trip.
Believe it or not, every trip you've ever taken can be broken down into just 3 key regions. First up, you've got the tourist-generating region. Let's call it the TGR. Super simple, that's your home base. It's where you live, where you work, and where you get that brilliant idea to go on vacation. Next, there's the transit route region, or the TRR. This is all the stuff in between. The highways, the airports, the train tracks, basically how you get from point A to point B. And finally, you arrive at the tourist destination region, the TDR. That's it. That's the place you were trying to get to all along, the one with all the cool stuff you came to see.
Let me give you a quick, concrete example. Imagine a traveler from Mumbai. That's their TGR. They hop on a flight. That's the TRR. And where do they land? The beautiful beaches of Goa. That's the TDR. See? TGR, TRR, TDR. Every single vacation, no matter how big or small, follows this exact same path.
All right, so we've got the physical journey mapped out. But what's the engine that actually powers this whole thing? Well, that brings us to the 2 invisible forces that make the entire system go, demand and supply.
The easiest way to think about this is like 2 sides of the very same coin. On one side, you have demand. That's all about you, the traveler. It's that feeling, that desire to go somewhere, but also having the money and the willingness to actually spend it. Then on the other side, you have supply. And that's everything the destination puts on the table to meet your demand. The hotels, the tours, the restaurants, the whole shebang.
So, what is it that actually fuels that demand? What makes you go from, "I'd like a vacation," to actually booking a trip? Well, it's a whole mix of things. Economics, obviously, is a huge one. Do you have that disposable income? Then you've got sociocultural stuff, like what's trending on social media. There are also psychological triggers, like the kind of image a place has. And of course, your personal situation, your age, your family, even political stuff like visa rules. It all gets thrown into the mix before you finally hit that Book Now button.
Okay, so what about the supply side? What does a destination need to have in place to welcome you? Well, first, it needs attractions, the cool things to see, whether it's a beach or a museum. It needs accessibility. Can you actually get there? Think airports and roads. It needs accommodation, places to sleep. And it needs amenities, places to eat, shop, get cash. And holding all of that together, the people, the human resources that make your stay great. And here's a key difference. While your desire to travel can change overnight, building a new airport or hotel, that takes a lot longer. Supply is way more fixed.
All right, this brings us to what is maybe the most critical piece of this entire puzzle, the art of balance. Because the health, The very survival of any tourist destination really boils down to one thing: how well it can match those two powerful forces we just talked about, demand and supply.
So, this relationship, it can only really be in one of three states. The perfect state, the one everyone's aiming for, is balanced. This is the sweet spot. You have just the right amount of tourists for the resources you have, everyone's happy. But when things get out of whack, you end up with one of two major problems: either excess demand, way too many people, or excess supply, way too many empty hotel rooms. And when demand completely steamrolls supply, you get a word you've probably heard a lot lately: over-tourism. You can picture it, right? Places where the streets are just choked with visitors. It leads to insane overcrowding, real environmental damage, and just puts this incredible strain on local infrastructure. It can make life a nightmare for the people who actually live there, and honestly, it can even ruin the trip for the tourists themselves.
But hey, the opposite problem can be just as bad. When you have way more supply than demand, you get what we call underutilization. Just picture it: ghost towns of empty hotels, restaurants with no one eating in them, tour guides just waiting. For businesses, this means crippling financial losses, and for the community, it's a massive waste of resources. So the crucial point is, why should you care about any of this? Why does understanding this system actually matter? Well, it matters because getting that balance wrong has real, tangible consequences that affect everyone, from you, the traveler, all the way to the local communities you're visiting. Because when a destination does get that balance right, that's where the magic happens. A balanced system is what leads to sustainable tourism. It helps a place stay competitive for years to come. It protects the very nature and culture that made you want to go there in the first place. It makes for happier tourists, and it allows for smart planning for the future. It's a classic win-win. So I want to leave you with this final thought. Now that you can see the hidden machinery, the whole system behind it all, the next time you plan a trip, just ask yourself this one question: are the choices I'm making a part of the problem, or am I part of the solution? Because honestly, that answer makes all the difference in the world.